Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat from the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You can't go out, man, forget my peace. You take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put them in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Not so tough when mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
John Cena did 100 push-ups before going out there last night, right? You can't, no matter what your body looks like, you can't go out there cold, that naked, and not do the push-ups. Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Did John Cena do 100 push-ups before going on stage yesterday?
Tricep dips, too. And some crunches.
You would think that there was a lot of exercise. I would think. We will talk some. Adnan will be here in a little bit, and David Sampson as well. We are a little bit depleted here. Thank you to everyone who participated last night. It was a lot of fun, and it was really nice to see that we could keep the audience for 7 hours of that nonsense.
You're welcome. Very nice of you.
Thanks to everybody except for Stugotz, who
and Billy.
I watched.
What'd you think? What were your thoughts?
I felt bad for you because for years we heard about your popcorn and how great the popcorn recipe was. And you came in and you seemed very excited. You sauntered in across the red carpet. You presented everybody with your homemade popcorn that has a secret recipe. And the first words that I heard in regards to your popcorn was, "This tastes weird."
Yeah,
and I said, "That's not good for Dan's confidence."
That was Lucy, who then ate 3 boxes of the popcorn. I noticed. Now she may have done that simply.
Takes some getting used to.
She may have simply been doing that to be, whatever the student who gives the teacher an apple, because I think she might have been being nice, but she did eat 3 buckets of it.
But Billy, you felt bad for Dan because Dan set the bar very high on the popcorn. There were expectations headed into that,
Yeah, no, and we've heard for a long time, and then he came in, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna
well,
kill."
Unfortunately, we're gonna have to get a group. Jessica's the only one here from last night, and
I was here, Dan. I gave my Terry Rozier analysis after the Heat game.
Well, you showed up, yes, much later.
The audience wanted.
Once the popcorn had gone bad. Once
That's
the
also
popcorn
true.
had been out for 4 hours or 6 hours.
Heard a lot of that needs butter.
Yeah, a lot of people like butter with their popcorn. That's not how.
Who doesn't?
I'm allergic to butter. I can't have it that way. I can't have butter on things.
Okay.
We will get the opinions of the group when the group is here. The group is not here today. So the thing that I wanted to get into from the weekend, though, Stugotz, because at the end of last week, and this is an interesting thing to me, what is happening in the fighting sports where you have the tension of the business of it is the worst. The employees in the fighting sports are disposable and they are labor that gets exploited by people making money. But we're at an inflection point where many of these people know that they have their own brands, their own power, and that they can exist as their own pay-per-view forces outside of the sport. Floyd Mayweather taught them that. You've heard me say one of the great, whether he can read or not, and I don't know whether he can read the contracts or not because 50 Cent and others have accused him of being illiterate.
Great businessman.
Well, just pioneer. It's beyond great businessman. It's well beyond that.
Right.
It's a decade, 2 decades ahead of everybody on business and on owning all your own stuff. But what ends up happening, and we'll get to Jake Paul and Tyson in a second. You can play that video now of Tyson outside in New York walking with a cane, Stugotz, because Jake Paul is fighting a 57-year-old fighter they told me is going to be an underdog in this fight, and I can't imagine why or how that would be even walking with a cane because Jake Paul has not fought someone who's an actual boxer like this.
But how happy were you when the New York Post aggregated your take while you were wearing a Willy Wonka costume?
A giant victory for me. It's one of my great. It's one of the great happinesses at this point in my career. It's one of the few things that can stir genuine emotion from me.
Every comment was like, "What the hell is this guy wearing? Why does he look like Willy Wonka?"
For me, it's Joe Mauer.
It is wonderful that I would say publicly. It's not just that I'm wearing a costume while being aggregated. It's the specifics of calling him an idiot while I'm dressed that way. And
like an idiot.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. That's what I was saying. I'm hoping that he responds at some point to the costume and wonders how it is that this idiot, meaning me, can be calling him an idiot.
There is additional pressure after that video came out on Jake Paul. You can't lose to that guy. I mean, you can't lose to a guy limping around with a cane. You can't do it. If I'm Tyson, I keep setting the bar lower and lower.
If he keeps setting the bar lower and lower, at his age, he won't be able to get under the bar. He won't be able to get up from being under the bar. But before we get to that, because I'm not sure if a UFC fight in America has ever sold a stadium out of that size, Jerry Jones's stadium. I know I could do it in Brazil and Japan and in Spain. Maybe some fights in America can, but I don't know if American fights have had a crowd of the size that Jake Paul and Tyson will do. But the thing that I wanted to talk about from the weekend, Stugotz, and it's a slow sports time, and I feel like it slid under the radar and should not have. And the only reason that it slid under the radar is because Anthony Joshua did to Ngannou what Tyson Fury should have done to Ngannou, knocked him out coldly in the second round because one of them is a professional boxer and the other is not. And Anthony Joshua made it look very easy because Anthony Joshua is one of the greatest fighters in the sport and in the heavyweight division. But to me, the great accomplishment of the last year in sports is Ngannou getting out from under his $600,000 payday, Stugotz, the last one he got at UFC, getting to real freedom and making in 2 fights a lot more than he ever would have made as the heavyweight champion of MMA. And to me, the big surprise was that he lasted 10 rounds with and knocked down Tyson Fury. I can't believe that that's something I saw happen because Jake Paul is a good boxer for someone who's not an actual boxer. Like, this is the space that he occupies where he impresses people because they're like, oh, he can box a little bit. Yeah, he can box a little bit. And he's going to the guy who was the menace at the height of that division. And even though he's 57 years old, do you remember how he fought?
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, you remember the style of how he fought.
Yes.
He's going to go right at Jake Paul because stamina is going to be an issue at 57. In a boxing ring, I believe those are the longest 3 minutes anybody can experience.
Has to be a quick knockout for Mike.
Yes, it has to be.
You know, Mike Tyson's walking around with a cane now, and I'm just wondering, should we start calling him Michael Caine?
Oh, jeez.
Get out.
Yep.
We're understaffed today.
The laugh. I mean, what happened there?
Out.
By the way, Canelo Alvarez and Billy Joe Saunders had a match in AT&T Stadium that had 73,000 people at it in 2021. So,
oh no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean boxing. I meant MMA is what I meant. And Canelo fights in Mexico and elsewhere. When I said Japan and Spain and Brazil, it's because I was talking about I don't know if MMA and I don't know if you can get 70, 80, 90,000 people. How many people does Jerry Jones's stadium hold? Because I don't know. I know what is that, AT&T Stadium? I don't know the names of stadiums and I don't know the sizes of stadiums. I just know that if you're in Texas and you're Jerry Jones, my guess is that you wanted to show everybody how big your ego is.
It holds like over 80,000 people. It's pretty massive.
Yeah, it's like 82,000 people.
Well, no, and then you have like boxing configurations where you have everybody on the floor.
True.
So.
With standing room only, it gets up to 105,000 people if they want it to.
The reason, and of course, I'm inflating the words to try and get aggregated while I'm in a Willy Wonka costume, but the reason that I'm calling Jake Paul an idiot is just because I think he's going to lose the fight. Obviously, as a business move, it's brilliant, and it's not idiotic. It's exactly Stugotz. His star was dissipating because he wasn't on the rise fighting better and better challengers anymore. He had lost, and this particular thing is just the freak show of go ahead and throw somebody out there who's going to fill a stadium for you. And also some of the Showtime stuff that he was doing had lost its luster, had it not? Like hadn't there been claims of like super shitty ratings on the last couple of things that he had done because it was just like he was a YouTube pioneer, and now that has slowed considerably, even though it's still very strong. And the ascent of Jake Paul as a pay-per-view draw was going to head into the toilet, but this rescues it.
Is this going to be his largest viewed thing because of the fact that it's on Netflix?
And it's Tyson.
I think Tyson.
Because the MMA guys, he was fighting washed-up MMA guys who weren't boxers and didn't have any real punching power. There was no real punching power. That he was physically stronger than all of the people he's fighting against, and he's bigger than all of them. And again, no punching power.
It's the right opponent at the right time for Jake Paul, and sadly, and this is a sad state of affairs for boxing, this is the matchup that gets me most excited. This is a matchup that will get me to my TV only to see if Mike Tyson can still do it.
Okay, so forgive me because he cannot, Stugotz. He fought, when he's fighting another fighter, he fought old Roy Jones Jr., and that was just sad.
Right.
But this gets me to where it is that I was headed with the conversation, which is I think Stugotz is more like people around this fight than people who love boxing and love MMA. I believe this shift in the sport to the circus freaks, to Conor McGregor fights Floyd Mayweather, and even though it's no good as a boxing spectacle, I think we've crossed over into just be famous.
Yep.
The way to do it in boxing now is either be in boxing or fighting or MMA is be famous, be loud, be someone who gets our attention with things other than boxing, other than fighting. Like this is, and I don't want to be precious about this, but there's a certain contamination to it that has almost next to nothing to do with sport.
No, it has everything to do with seeing an aging Mike Tyson climb back in the ring. Dan, there are no stars in that sport. There are no stars that are going to get me, the fringe boxing fan, to go watch a boxing match.
There are, but
Mike Tyson brings me back to a time. It's not about Jake Paul. It's about Mike Tyson.
No, but
That's it.
But it's also about your general laziness and
well, of course,
and your need for spectacle and this.
My need for star power.
I'm not complaining about this. I'm really not. It may sound like it, but I have embraced the idea that, that you should give the customer whatever it is the customer wants. I am, though, pretty amazed that what the customer wants is always now this thing in fighting, that if you are MMA or boxing, you're going to be niche, but you're never going to have one of those spectacle nights unless you do the circus freak act.
But if you're a boxing fan, and you are, Dan, you love boxing, I understand why this would upset you. I know you're saying you're not complaining, but I don't care if boxing fans complain. They have every right to complain. It's a gimmick fight, and I'm interested in it.
I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing out to people that it has now happened, and in a way that surprises me, it is no longer about sport in fighting.
It's about entertainment.
It is about business and fame. It's business and fame, and then sport is down the list on whether you're going to have. You have to remember, Stugotz, once upon a time in America, when Ali was king, the heavyweight boxing night was the biggest night in sports. It's been dead for a long time, but now you can't even recreate it unless you make it not about sports and only about the fame.
You're saying it's a cheap ploy for attention, in a world craving for some credibility, almost like dressing up as Willy Wonka.
One could
Get
say that.
aggregated by a New York Post article.
Dan is a lover of the sweet science, and he's upset. He's not going to say it.
I'm not upset.
I mean,
I'm
you're
not
Larry
upset.
Merchant. We all know this.
I'm
You
not-
sound a little
You
upset.
do sound
But I'm
upset.
not,
You're-
that they're
you're
all
poor
merchants,
sport.
that all of them are merchants now. No, because I will watch this, and I want to see Tyson harm Jake Paul, and I think that he will.
You sound pretty upset, Dan.
It sounds personal
You
at
sound
this
upset.
point.
You sound
Yeah,
broken.
jeez.
I mean,
How is that upset?
Tone.
He didn't say physically harm, maybe like damage his reputation.
Emotionally?
Emotionally, hurt him emotionally. Yes, break him before he
So
ever
that
gets
he's as
into
sad
the
as you
ring.
are about
yes.
this.
But if-
I'm not sad about
If
it.
Mike
You're
Tyson
sad.
wins, Dan, that doesn't mean boxing's coming back.
That's correct.
I don't know if you're aware of that. You sound upset by this, and you
Okay.
think
You
that you
keep
want him to
accusing
come
me,
and you
yes.
want him to hurt Jake Paul to restore the glory days of boxing. But
There's a cool
it's
Ali
not gonna
exhibit
happen.
on Miami Beach if you want to go
Yeah.
look at the glory days.
You know what?
Yeah.
Forgive me. I must have communicated this poorly. I have trouble with communication. I don't want Mike Tyson to restore boxing and hurt Jake Paul. To,
Are you sure?
To signal a victory. Yes, if you let me get through it, I'll explain to you what it is that I meant. I do not want him to restore boxing or hurt Jake Paul to restore the place of boxers in the universe in that time in the 1970s when boxing was king. I want him to hurt Jake Paul because he's Jake Paul.
All right, I'm there with you then.
this potentially is the last great fight, right? I mean, what do you do after Tyson?
Hold on, put a costume and then say that again.
I thought, Stugotz, I know a lot of people are talking today in college basketball about the fight between South Carolina and LSU, but I thought the biggest story of the weekend involving South Carolina women's basketball wasn't that game. It was the one before that where they remained undefeated because, and forgive me, I do not know the name of the woman who had never before made
Camila Cardoso.
a three in a game. And out of nowhere, they leave her open at the end of the game. South Carolina is going to lose for the first time in 2 years in a regular season game. You make the correct play by leaving her open, and she banks in a three. She steps back. She could have tied the game with a two, but she steps back to make her first three, to bank in her first three. And South Carolina ends up remaining the new UConn, Stugotz, because nobody can beat them. But Tennessee had them beaten.
The bank was open, huh?
Newcon.
If you see the clip, you can see Dawn Staley in the background too, telling her like when the last inbound pass is coming in, like if you get the shot, take it. Like basically coaching her, telling her, like giving her some confidence because she's not a perimeter shooter. This is a player who is 6'7", never shoots from outside ever. This is her first three, like you said. So she's completely unguarded there. She's just wide open, and she banks it in and wins the game. And Tennessee players, their coach, like despondent. Kelly Harper, like can't believe what she just saw. It was such a crazy finish, only to be outdone then in the SEC championship game on Sunday with the LSU game.
What she couldn't believe is that she hit a three, right? The Tennessee coach, because that's the play you want. Like, you'll take that shot. That's the shot she wanted in that situation. She was giving her the shots.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah,
like
right.
right. And there was a second left on the clock. Like the fact that she even got it off that quickly too, everything about it was just unbelievable when you watched it live. It was so crazy.
Oh, but it's not just that, though, right? Because that by itself is ridiculous, right? Because the shot, it felt like it was off the top of the backboard. I don't even know how it banked in. It was a terrible shot, and it banked right in. But the part we're leaving out is that Tennessee was up 73-71 with 3 seconds left and had 2 free throws and missed them both. So they could have gone up 4 and ended the game and ended 2 years of South Carolina winning, Stugotz, without losing, and instead missed 2 free throws and then get your heart broken that way. Remember, you guys made fun of me the last week because something happened in hockey. And I was describing how I felt that feeling before where you make a couple of mistakes and now you're trailing the play, and the thing that you feared happening most, you've already imagined worst case scenario fears because you're the one responsible for it, and then you watch it happen. if you've missed those two free throws and now you're getting back on defense and committing the foul, all of that is happening in slow motion.
Yes.
They're inbounding the ball. Like, you're watching and you're like, I know I missed those 2 free throws. I could have ended this game with those 2 free throws. And the rest of what you're watching is you can't sleep for 3 days after that.
And as a Tennessee fan too, like, you've seen this game before. Like, the Tennessee is a really good team, but they have these games when they're playing teams ranked ahead of them where they're so close but they can't close it out. And like, this was a game where they had them the entire game, and South Carolina only needed a 2 to take it to overtime, and somehow they get the 3-point shot and score and end up in the championship game again. It was just like absolutely crazy. This weekend was one of the best women's basketball weekends of probably the entire year so far. The 4 conference championship games and like the power conferences yesterday, starting with the Iowa-Nebraska game going to overtime. Notre Dame won the ACC, then the South Carolina LSU game, and then USC-Stanford, all back-to-back-to-back, kind of overlapping, which was a bummer. I wish they had like spaced them out better, but absolutely incredible day of basketball.
Was there anything good or interesting in the commentary beyond South Carolina and LSU really don't like each other? South Carolina is better than LSU, and
Well, they're better than everyone.
yeah, but LSU. Well, but I mean, LSU's.
They're very
LSU
good.
won the national
Yes,
championship.
I know. I'm
it's-
aware.
So okay, but like, so they might be better than everybody, but LSU is right there with them. And was there anything interesting in the commentary that you heard about the fight? Because tensions escalating to a place where these two teams obviously don't like each other because they're competing for the top of the sport and have been for a couple of years. Any good commentary?
Well, I mean, I thought what was interesting from my perspective was with the last time these teams played, it was actually that game that we were talking about rated higher than I think it was the Celtics Heat game, that Thursday night game. The game really swung in like the last couple minutes. So what I was looking forward to at the end of this game was there's 2 minutes left. LSU had been trailing most of the game. South Carolina kept making shots to keep a lead ahead of them. But with 2 minutes left, I was like, okay, is this game going to have a similar kind of swing where LSU now gets back in it and can somehow win it? But then this happens. So basically, a LSU player committed an intentional foul on a South Carolina player, and then there was a bit of like, I don't even know if you can call it a fight. Like, no one threw any punches. It was more of a skirmish, a scuffle, if you will. But then
An NBA fight.
Camila Cardoso, who's a player, the one who's 6'7", with she's, I don't know if you can see her on the video, but anyway, she comes in right there, pushes the LSU player who fouled her teammate, and then everyone gets up off the benches except for one USC player. And if you clear the bench area, it's an automatic ejection. Plus, Camila Cardoso got ejected for fighting, so now she's going to miss the first game of the NCAA tournament, which will be USC will be a 1 seed, so they're going to play a 16. So probably won't impact them too much. But initially, the broadcast team said that all of the players who got ejected, which was both benches plus Camila Cardoso, would be out for the first game of the NCAA tournament. And that would have been insane because only 5 players were left on each team, although South Carolina had like 1 player who didn't get off the bench area. So we're
going to need to
a
identify,
sub.
though, exactly what this fight was and how to describe it, because we have an escalating
Brouhaha?
list of tensions. We'll get you. We're going to get you guys the escalating list of tensions. We have an official list that has been created, so you guys choose.
I have it here. There's a lot.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
choose. And are you going top to bottom, bottom to top? What are you doing here?
Okay, so this is the least chicanery.
Okay, so go.
I would say it's more than
well, but hold on.
Would you say it's hijinks?
Let him get through.
I'd say there were hijinks throughout the game and escalated into
Malarkey?
whatever this is.
Okay, I don't want commentary off of each one because there are many of them.
Well,
so
we're trying
just,
to figure out.
Okay,
Just read the list
just,
and we'll
just
pick
go
one.
ahead.
Talking it
Just, I
out.
don't need commentary on each one. I know there are hundreds
I feel like
of them.
the process is important.
Yeah.
Okay, but you just tell
Right.
us when
Was
we're
it
in the
skulldug?
area.
Was it closer to skullduggery or shenanigans?
I'd say it's more than just shenanigans.
It was larger than a tiff, a spat, or a quarrel, though, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Worse than tomfoolery.
Yeah.
We mentioned skirmish, but did it escalate to a fracas?
I feel like it's in that region.
Really?
That feels
Less than hullabaloo or ballyhoo?
It's in that region.
Was it quite at the level of a dust-up?
Yeah, I would
does
say
stuff.
Or
it's
brouhaha?
about there. I mean,
Well,
there
we
was,
have to get to you
it was
saying
just
no, though.
a big shove, and then
Less than Armageddon.
the LSU player who got
yeah,
shoved, according to the broadcast, her brother jumped onto the court, so that led to an even further
Agree to disagree?
escalation.
Did the gloves come off? Were there fisticuffs?
No, we're definitely
fisticuffs.
no
We weren't
fisticuffs.
at
Gloves
No?
did not come off.
So we didn't get to kerfuffle
Not a kerfuffle.
Okay.
or hubbub. No hurly burly. Wasn't a
I
slobber
I don't know if I
knocker?
agree with
think it was
this
a hubbub.
ranking.
Really?
What?
I think
What?
skirmish.
Did
What do
we
you
reach
mean?
Donnybrook?
What do you mean? It's the list.
I think it was a hubbub.
We generally do not do very much with the Oscars, largely skip right past all of the award shows, but Adnan Virk and David Sampson did something giant with the Oscars last night. It was a lot of fun. Our audience really enjoyed it. They really enjoyed it. The least enjoyable part of it was David Sampson getting more of his picks right than anybody he was competing against, and only 49 people on all of the internet did better than him. But, well, we'll talk to David about that in a second. But, Adnan, if you have to choose from the following, Al Pacino apparently screwing everything up at the end of the night, the Il Memoriam video tribute at the end using the Step Brothers music from the Catalina wine mixer, Ryan Gosling as Ken or John Cena. Like, what was the single? You can only pick one thing. The standout thing from last night is blank.
You're saying in a positive sense or negative sense?
Anything.
Since you're going negative. Okay,
Anything.
Well, I'm going to say positive then. I'm going to stay with Nicolas Cage when he went out there. My favorite moment was when previous award winners were honoring nominees. And Nick Cage, we all know, is about as wacky as it gets. I'm sure our audience loves Nick Cage. And he spoke to one of my favorite actors, in Paul Giamatti. He said, Paul, in The Holdovers, you wore a soft contact lens, which made you blind in one eye. Would I have done so? Hell yes. And a whole ovation started going nuts, and he said, but great job by you and killer job as always. I also liked when Tim Robbins went out, was addressing Robert De Niro. He mistakenly said, in your Academy Award-winning performance in Killers of the Flower Moon, crowd started laughing. He goes, I mean, Academy Award nominated. You should win this, though. So I just love that concept of bringing back previous award winners to be there. As for my man Pacino, who I adore, you're supposed to say, and the nominees are, and they have the nice little crawl of the nominees, but who cares? We all knew it was going to be Oppenheimer anyways, so Al just skipped to that, goes, opens the envelope, goes, yeah, Oppenheimer. So I give Pacino credit. He wanted to get Abbott Elementary on the air, on time, and we just cut through the fluff. Way to go, Al.
He didn't say the winner is Oppenheimer. He said, I see Oppenheimer. Right. And then everyone was like, there was like a pause before applause because no one knew what it meant.
Hooah!
I think Adnan's bearing the lead. I think what bothered him the most was being here 7 hours, and then at the end, he lost to me. Wow. I think that is the true takeaway from last night.
I'll say this. Nobody rides a line between loathsome and hateful like David Sampson. I mean, it is. You're right. It is remarkable, yes. Stu, the way he can do it.
I mean, it seems like the same thing. That doesn't seem like
sure
a line.
What a line that is.
But I have to give credit where credit is due. My man ran a half marathon yesterday.
It's amazing.
And then was able to finish first in the pool. He was ahead of me. He was ahead of Ben Lyons, who pitched this entire idea. So Ben now has me with egg on my face. But I think ultimately, I give credit to David on this. When everybody else is zigging, you got to zag. And we both lost in Beth's live action short film because we went with a best animated short film. We both went Letter to a Pig. And David looked at me and goes, Holocaust film. I go, exactly. But he picked it on sound, which was an inspired choice. He went Zone of Interest, whereas all the rest of us went Oppenheimer. And he also should have used the same logic, which is Holocaust film. So I give him credit because that was a pretty good call by him and a gutsy pick.
David, did Pacino err? I mean, that's a very dramatic moment. Everybody's waiting around.
Oh, who cares?
Exactly.
I mean,
Stu's right.
I mean, the winner is. That's the way we have to do it.
No, the nominees are.
The nominees are. Who cares? Everyone knew who was winning the award at that
Correct.
point.
Way to go, Stu.
You give the moment to the nominee.
Yeah,
it's Al's moment.
The important thing is for the other 9 shows to get one more mention.
Right.
So Ben Lyons pointed this out during the show that you were watching last night, Stu, during your travels, I'm positive.
Yep, great show.
We saw the number of people watching, and it kept going +1. Which I think was
You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you. It was critical. Speaking to all our guys out there, like, we got Stu, baby. And so there's not enough talk of past lives, not enough talk of some of the other nominees, and you want to give them that moment in the sun for being a Best Picture nomination. And Al Pacino just blew it. The problem is you keep sending octogenarians out there. That's what you're going to get.
If you say so.
I had a moment last night where I fully realized that like I'm starting to become washed up, and it was when the Oscars wrapped and they had that cut to the clip of Messi the dog peeing on Matt Damon's Hollywood star, and I was like, wow, I just found this Jimmy Kimmel Matt Damon beef thing funny. Holy shit. I am officially entering my 30s.
Jessica feeling old is something that I was not, I didn't have it on the bingo card, but there are any number of things around here all the time that are making us feel old, and I want to do a daily segment that recognizes this. Let's begin with whatever you've got today, Jeremy, to make us all feel old.
So outside of Jackson Holiday, Matt Holiday's son being like the best player in spring training, not named Juan Soto, and his other son being a number 1 overall prospect as well, I bring you news that class of 2025 wide receiver Eugene Hilton Jr. is down to 7 schools. Yep, that's the son of T.Y. Hilton.
He played like 2 years ago.
T.Y. Hilton's kid getting ready to go to college. We're so old, Dad.
We can do this every day. We're going to do it every day.
Did you know that Charles Johnson's son has been a professional football player for multiple years?
What? CJ.
Yes.
CJ, did you know CJ?
No, I had no idea.
He's played for the Broncos for 2 years. I grew up on the same street. I lived on the same street in Plantation as Charles Johnson. And it was the most awkward part of my career is the day we traded Charles Johnson and I saw him on the street, which was horrible. And he had little boys. And it blew my mind. I didn't realize, because I don't live on the street anymore.
But you're old and Charles Johnson is old. T.Y. Hilton and Jessica are not old.
Well,
Jess is kind of old.
Getting there.
I mean, she's
Bob's aged me.
getting into her 30s. It's not young.
T.Y. Hilton.
She goes to bed at 9. I mean,
T.Y. Hilton also ended up at FIU because his son, like, he put his West Virginia hat and an FIU hat, and his son crawled to the FIU hat, and that's how he chose FIU over West Virginia.
Really?
And now his son didn't choose
Would
FIU.
you trust your
FIU
kids
is not
with
there.
doing that?
Oh, I don't trust my kids with anything. My kids are idiots.
T.Y. Hilton played for the Cowboys in 2022. I mean,
David, what do you make of Elon Musk saying on...
Listen, let's get back to Oppenheimer. Come
How
on.
does he know your kids are idiots this early?
Well, I mean,
Are they testing badly, like in the school
no,
tests?
they're I mean, a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old are not.
when you
Your
know, you know,
8-month-old's
dude.
an idiot?
Well, compared to me.
He's just adventurous.
Put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Are all 2-month-olds and 8-month-olds idiots? What do you make, David, of Elon Musk saying, because I didn't think that this was pervasive last night, but maybe I have it wrong. Winning an Oscar now just means you won the woke contest.
No, winning an Oscar means that your rate has increased when you do your next project.
But what's
It is
happening
very
there?
good
but
for
what's
business.
what's
Listen,
happening there?
That Hollywood is liberal. That's huge news. That hadn't happened. That is all because of Trump. It's only the last 4 years that Hollywood's been liberal. So I totally understand that comment. It's absurd.
What
Adnan, how
happened?
long
What
has it been-
happened last night that wins the woke Olympics?
Jonathan Glazer won the Oscar for Best International Feature Film for The Zone of Interest, and in his speech, he mentioned the occupation in Gaza. So if you want to see talk politics, he said, my film is about genocide. There's also cruelty taking place right now in the world. We hope for a ceasefire. And 20 Days of Mariupol won, which is a film about what's happening in Ukraine. And the winner said, I would take back this award for, all the lives that have been lost in Ukraine. So maybe Elon Musk doesn't
But would he?
Yeah, that's
You're questioning that?
I don't think he would. It's
David.
big. It is so big to win that category.
What are you
Oh,
talking
what?
about?
Talking about the pain
What
and
are you
suffering
doing?
of people
What
killed
are
in
you
Ukraine.
doing? Go sit in the penalty
questioning
box.
the sincerity of
Go
that.
sit in the penalty box. Go sit out there. He's tired. He's punch drunk, man. He's been working a lot. He's running.
What an excuse.
I mean, just get out of here. Just go out.
What's
Go
his
sit.
excuse the rest of the
Go
time?
sit in the penalty box. What Jessica said while I was asking them that question was, I should win the woke Olympics because I was up until the end of that
I
night
stayed
last
awake,
night.
but also shout out to the Oscars. Early start time, early finish time. What a choice. Best thing they've done in years. Wrapping it up before 10:30 Eastern on the day of daylight saving, spring forward.
Big time.
Everyone was tired. I didn't know what time it was. My dog didn't know what time it was. I woke up this morning and it was dark out and I wanted to puke. Thank you to the Oscars for
They
ending
were
early.
rushing through it, Adnan. They didn't need to rush. I mean, they go too slow sometimes, but they were in a big rush at the end, and that's when the payoffs are.
Yeah, it's normally about a 3.5-hour show. So to Jess's point, historically for years, it's always started at 8 o'clock Eastern. They move it up an hour to 7, thinking it'll end by 10:30. So by that logic, they did get out early. They were done by 10:22, and they didn't need to play the music off now for costume designer and production designer. Now that I look back, they had more time. And again, if Al had just said, "Here's the nominees," we would have had a little bit more time. But again, if you want Oscar moments, if you love movies, I think you still appreciate what happened. And again, Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan is that rare filmmaker. A really cool moment when Spielberg presented Best Director to him. Christopher Nolan's like today's Spielberg, a guy that makes movies that make a ton of money, but it's also loved by the critics. So it was a pretty cool moment if you like Christopher Nolan, and that gives me an excuse to get Jess to do Bane.
What do you mean? I am Bane. Women's basketball in the A block. What a choice. Who would have thought the women's game would get more attention than the men's?
What a time.
I'm now quoting John Reed in a production meeting.
Billy had mentioned that there was something about International Women's Day that was bothering him, and I wanted to see it.
That is
from-
not
that is
no,
not
that's
fair.
exactly
That is
what
what you
yeah,
said.
no,
That is
that's
what you
said.
said.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
I was there.
That's what you said. We
That
were
is
all
not
there.
how
We went.
that
That's how that
happens.
went. That's how that
100%
went.
no.
He's right.
Well, explain yourself.
Falsehoods.
Explain
Let's hear it, Bill.
Okay, well then explain yourself. Explain what your complaint was about International Women's Day. And let me just show the audience this first of all, because guys, get for me please the video of LeBron James this weekend that everyone was delighting over, because Kurt Ramos's wife, I believe her name is Linda,
Yep.
and Jeannie Buss were pawing at LeBron James in a way that made me think everybody had been drinking. I thought everybody had been. I don't know what time of day it was.
A lot of touching of biceps.
Yeah, there's a lot of touching, and LeBron James, their lip readers have now gathered and realized that the way that he won this moment is by just saying, first of all, Happy International Women's Day. And just look at this. What he gets after that is just coquettish snuggling from all the parties involved. Billy, what was your objection to International
I
Women's
have
Day?
no objection
That's not
to
true.
International Women's
Billy?
Day. That's not
Billy,
what
say
happened.
it.
Billy, you
This
had an
video
objection.
played. No, this video played.
Tell the truth.
This video played, and what I said was, on that day, I went to Farm Stores, which is like a local, little drive-up convenience store where they overcharge you for everything. And I went and I bought a pizza next door, and I wanted to have soda with the pizza, so I asked for a soda, which for a 2-liter soda there was like $4, which is like ridiculous because it's a drive-up convenience store. And then they asked me on the way out, would you like to buy an orchid for International Women's Day for $13? And I said, no. I would not. I would like a soda, and that's it. This isn't like $1 for charity. You're now asking me for $13 extra for an orchid I didn't ask for. And that's all I said about International Women's Day. That was it. That was my entire
You said
comment.
women were gouging you.
I didn't say that.
They're always out for your money.
pawing at you. Yeah.
The store was trying to gouge you. It was an upsell.
I didn't say any of those things. I did say, though, that this is an international holiday, and I asked Jeremy when this dated back to because I wasn't familiar with the origins of this holiday. But I said it was incredible that there's no world peace, but every nation in the world celebrates International Women's Day. That's what I said. Do you not think it's...
I think he cleaned it up. I think that's fair.
Why are we giving women just a day? I
Wow.
mean, seriously, they deserve a month. They
Yeah.
deserve a year. Why
Yeah,
are we
Stu.
just giving them a day?
Stu, way to
What are
go.
we
Way to go,
doing?
Stu. Way to
What
go,
are
Stu.
we
Save the
doing?
whales.
A day?
Pay the teachers.
Please.
Support the troops.
I mean, save the whales.
You're a simp.
Mac Jones. Everybody's terrified to compare him to Tom Brady. Folks, young Mac Jones looks like young Tom Brady. You need to just put your arms around it, because that's exactly what it looks like.
I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the present and the future, and his name is Mac Jones.
Mac Jones got written off. He is a Pro Bowl quarterback. He may be the best quarterback in the division.
He was threading the needle. He's throwing like lob passes. He's hitting guys in double coverage. It really felt like early 2000s Pats.
I love Mac Jones. I think he's a heck of a competitor. Gets the ball out on time, does the small things right. I think they are missing a few more pieces on the offensive side of the ball. Once they add those, valuable pieces around him, I think Mac Jones, he can be successful as any quarterback in this league.
If I had to draft a quarterback in the AFC East right now, the way Josh Allen, who I love, the way he's going, he doesn't protect the football. Aaron Rodgers is 102, is injury prone. Mac's a Pro Bowler.
If I'm the Jets, I own the Jets. If I don't land Aaron, I would absolutely call New England and say, we'll take Mac. Am I nuts?
The backup quarterback career of Mac Jones started this weekend.
Congratulations to him.
Yes.
I mean, greatest job in sports. He should embrace that thing, man.
That is right. Traded to Jacksonville for a late-round pick.
Also, Kenny Pickett's began this morning.
Wow.
Well, I'm not sure about that only because of this. Because Russell Wilson is on a one-year prove-it deal, and the job might be Kenny Pickett's again in a year. Because
if he doesn't prove it, right.
If he does or he doesn't, because he's only there for 1 year, and he's there cheap, at least in part because he's here to prove to everybody that he still deserves one of those big contracts.
No, he's only there cheap because Denver's paying his salary.
Right.
I know.
He's getting the big contract.
I know,
but you're right.
But he's there cheap for Pittsburgh,
Right.
and he's playing in Pittsburgh. And that part's smart on all parties involved. Like, to me, that is a no-lose proposition, because can you be better than Mason Rudolph? And he's cheaper probably than Mason Rudolph.
I would say Russell has a lot to lose, also a lot to gain. This is a big moment and a big season coming up for Russell, because he was in the Hall of Fame. He played his way out of the Hall of Fame in Denver, and now he has an opportunity to play his way back into the Hall of Fame with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, or, Dan, he could solidify that he'll never make it to Canton if he is the quarterback for Mike Tomlin's first losing season. I mean,
wow.
It's a crossroads.
Well, if I know the Steelers, to go backtrack, it was, the Kenny Pickett backup thing was a joke, because if I know the Steelers, they are going to have a quarterback competition, and maybe they will have carry more weight to Russell Wilson given his age and experience than Kenny Pickett given his lack of experience and injury history. But they will act like it's a competition, whether it really is or it isn't.
I don't think when he signed that he was told anything other than he's the number one.
Right.
I don't think he goes there without the job.
Agreed.
That's why they'll say it's a competition.
They're just going to
but-
pretend.
If I know the Steelers, they're going to say it's a competition.
I think the biggest risk is he doesn't play. I think Pickens plays this year because I don't see Russell Wilson playing 17 games.
Pickens better play.
Pickens is going to play.
Pickett, that's a fine.
Pickett is the. But I do think that they announced that he's not good enough. We all saw that last year. But I think almost everyone listening to this, by consensus, and this is rare in sports, would just look at that overall deal and say, yep, good for everybody.
Yes.
Believe that is a positive thing that can work out for everybody and make everyone a little bit better. But that's how unimpressive Pickett was as the starter on that team, never throwing the ball downfield, never using Pickens correctly, because he's simply look, Russell Wilson can still throw the deep ball. Don't tell me he can't do that, because he can do that. And we've all seen him do that. We haven't seen Kenny Pickett do it.
They also had a offensive coordinator who was fired midway through the season last year, and it coincided with Pickett getting his ankle fractured. So he didn't really even get to play under a non-Matt Canada offensive coordinator. So, and then, of course, when they got into the playoffs, they kept going with Rudolph because he was the hot hand.
And he played well.
And he did play well,
Yeah.
but they hired a new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, who's got a lot of experience running good offenses, even though might not have been the best head coach in Atlanta. So I think it's interesting.
You were very gentle there with Arthur. You were might not have been the best.
He wasn't. He wasn't a good head coach, but he was a good offensive coordinator before that. And I think it's a low risk. It's a low risk for the Steelers to sign Russell Wilson, have Denver cover the $38 million, however much it is.
No risk.
There's only
isn't it?
upside. Yeah,
It's
there's
no
only
risk.
upside.
Exactly.
Pay the minimum.
We're doing a weird thing with Russell, though, where he had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions last year. 26 touchdowns is 2 less than Tua. I mean,
fewer.
He didn't have a bad year. And people think that he's washed up.
The people who are analyzing that sport most closely are telling you that those numbers are a bit of a mirage because those are the ones you keep pointing to,
Right.
and they're the only ones you keep pointing to.
That's all I got.
And if I give any starting quarterback in this league that kind of reps, that the way they play the sport now, you're going to come pretty close to getting that if I give you 16 or 17 games worth of reps. It's just you can't play in this league unless you're doing that at this point.
He had more touchdown passes last season, Russell Wilson did, than the Steelers have had over the last 2 years. As a team.
Yes, and you are correct that the Steeler offense have been bad, and most people are looking at some of what it is statistically that Russell Wilson has done and said, that's not that bad. But the people who are actually studying play-by-play stuff, the people who are scouting whether the DBs are doing the job.
Not just winging it.
They're not just, hey, I'm looking at these 2 numbers. The people who look at
I love to wing it,
slightly more than those 2 numbers are saying he was not anything other than mediocre last year. But something I wanted to ask David that sort of, I'm not going to say it's skated underneath the radar, but I don't know that it can be given enough attention given where we are and where the money is in sports. Rudy Gobert was just fined $100,000. It's a stiff fine for words said and actions that aren't violent or physical. And he made a money sign at a referee, and then after the game said that sports betting is influencing the results of games. I think it's the worst accusation a commissioner can hear in his office coming from a player. Like
no doubt.
Verbal said, there are crimes that can be committed. But if you ask me, what if I'm a commissioner, what's at the top of my list of I'm going to punish this the hardest? It's what Rudy Gobert just did.
I feel so happy right now. I'm going to cry. I'm
$5.
I have it. You watched Nothing Personal this morning.
I did not.
Oh, so you don't know that Adam Silver is wired like in Saving Silverman when Jason Biggs went to dinner. And anytime there's competitive integrity that's on the line, anytime a player says anything about gambling or impugns the integrity of any referee, it buzzes, and he immediately fines the player. That's where we are with the gambling relationship. It's the number one issue the commissioners have. The amount of investigation done into the Rudy Gobert, it took 5 minutes. It happened, they announced the fine. And this is because it was gambling related. When there's fights, they look at video, they look at all angles, they'll wait 2 days when there's something going on off the court. But when it's gambling, it's immediate. And what Gobert did, you just can't have it. You can't have people thinking the referees are fixing games.
I can't believe he did it. No matter what his complaints are, I can't believe that he's making the next step. You get fined a certain amount for simply questioning the officiating. That you can do, you're going to get fined. But this is an extraordinary fine. This is an amount of money that's unusual, and it's because of the specifics of the accusation. He's saying that those refs in that game were impacted by gambling. You cannot say that.
That's the third rail. But also Rudy Gobert, this has happened to him before. So the other thing NBA said is, hey, we've had to fine him so many times for questioning the officials. That's another reason we're doing it.
You're surprised that Rudy Gobert did something stupid publicly? Rudy Gobert? Are we talking about the same guy?
But he can't say it if he indeed feels it. If he actually feels that way, he can't lend a voice to it?
No.
What?
Not without consequences.
I mean, okay,
You
so
keep
he
it
pays
to yourself.
Well, he's got a big fine he's got to pay.
There's also a way to express your dismay with the referees without money signs and
Accusing them of a
explicitly
crime?
saying it.
The
Like, that's
words,
a whole other
the words
thing.
is really what got him in trouble. Because the sign, you could kind of like, oh no, I was doing this,
Johnny
that, or whatever.
Manziel
You can
fan.
kind
I don't
yeah,
know,
you
man.
This
Pointed
sign
at the
is
referee to
pretty
do it.
Obvious.
$100,000 though. The words is what buried him, I think. When you're like, yeah, the game's
I
fixed.
thought it was his history is what
Well,
the
that's what you
amount
say.
was. but
Speaking
the
of which,
speed-
is it the 4-year anniversary yet of Rudy Gobert?
Yeah, it passed this weekend.
Oh man.
March 11th, I believe,
Yep.
4 years ago, is the day that Rudy Gobert he licked the microphone.
He touched
He
them
touched
all.
all of
the
them, and then the
microphones.
next
Yeah,
day
to his
we found out he
face,
had
yeah.
COVID.
And then
Okay.
he gave us all COVID.
You had him licking them.
I thought
Hey, he
licked
started
it.
the pandemic.
Stugotz.
David thought he was like tongue kissing all the media members. No, David.
No, the microphones, not the media
I
members.
was just escalating your
Oh, okay.
incorrect comment.
Russ had more touchdown passes than Lamar Jackson. Won the MVP.
Steelers Super Bowl.
Will you
Let's steal.
will you defend everything?
We're going with let's smelt Billy.
Well, what do you mean?
A player
Yes.
has committed the act of accusing the referees of a crime
Right.
that impugn the integrity of the results because he is saying that gamblers are the reason that the Timberwolves lost because they have bribed officials. How are you shrugging your shoulders at that?
I'm not shrugging my shoulders. I'm saying if that's the way he feels, why not put a voice to it?
Okay, Stugotz, yes. Does he have
Then
freedom?
a $100,000 fine to him is like a $10 fine to me. It's like, all right, he'll eat the $100,000, but he wanted to put his voice on something that he clearly feels passionate about. I mean, and who's to say it's not? I'm just saying, like, that's been going on in the NBA for years, since David Stern, where people felt like these series were predetermined. I mean, it has. That conversation's been going on forever.
That's Jorge Sedano on local radio saying it, is not one of your employees saying it when you're the commissioner of the league. I just don't know. I honestly, I know that people are talking about you don't have the freedom to express your opinions these days, but as far as verbal sports crimes go, like I don't know what I'd put close to this.
You don't have the right to express that as a player in a league. You don't.
Well, you do, but you get fined for it.
Well, there's a consequence.
Right.
Was it a close game?
Yeah. It was. They were leading by one, and then they lost the game. Can you guys just look up for me? I'd like in the next segment to do a few
Verbal
precedents
sports crimes?
with fines. I want to know how many people have been fined $100,000 for something like this.